Hello, and welcome to this demonstration of Kubernetes with Flannel over EdgeVPN-io. In this demo, I'll show how to deploy a Kubernetes cluster with 4 nodes running Ubuntu 18.04. I will use Evio to create a virtual network for the Kubernetes hosts across 3 different sites and behind nets, and Flannel to provide connectivity among pods. In the demo, I'll show terminals connected to each node and color-coded as shown. The top left is going to be our Kubernetes manager kubnode 1, and the blue and green terminals are going to join as cluster worker nodes. These are virtual machines with fresh installs of Ubuntu 18.04. So first I install software dependencies for Evio on all nodes using apt. You can find detailed commands in our documentation for this. Now I download the Evio Debian package, and I also install it using apt on all 4 nodes. To run, Evio needs a configuration file, and you can get started quickly by requesting trial XMPP accounts on a trial server as described on our website. Here I uncompressed a zip file that I received with a trial account request on all the nodes. Then I copy the node-specific JSON configuration file to the default path used by the Evio service. As you can see, I am simply repeating the same command, but with a different configuration file number for each of the 4 nodes. The configuration file determines the virtual IP address of each node. The node in black is node number 1, node in blue is node number 2, and the other 2 are nodes 3 and 4. I then can start the Evio service with systemctl on each node, and it uses the configuration file that was just copied. Now I can see that the Evio virtual bridge is up and running, and it's configured with IP address 10.10.100.1 for node 1, 10.10.100.2 for node 2, and so on. Note that these VMs are in different networks and behind nets, but Evio brings them into a single virtual address space. Now I ping nodes 2 through 4 from node 1 on the top left. Note that the ping latencies are different, reflecting the fact that these nodes are deployed in different locations across the wide area internet. Now that the nodes are connected by Evio, I begin installing Kubernetes dependencies on all the nodes, again using apt, here starting with Docker. These steps now are described in details in Kubernetes documentation and also on the Evio site. It's more of the same, setting up apt repositories and installing various packages, leading to the installation of kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl. And again, this is done on all nodes. Now we need to turn off swap and configure Kubernetes to use the Evio virtual network interface instead of the node's physical network. This is done by editing the kubeadm configuration file and adding an extra argument that specifies the IP address the node will bind to. In this demo, the 10.10.100 Evio address space, and this is configured on every single node. Now I initialize the Kubernetes manager on node 1. Once the manager is initialized, node 1 will print out a command that is to be executed on nodes 2 through 4 to join the cluster. I copy and paste the command and execute on the other nodes, and they then join the cluster. Now I apply some configuration file bookkeeping commands, which are described in the Kubernetes documentation. Then I'm ready to query for the nodes in the cluster and see that they all have joined indeed. Now I need to configure Flannel to use the Evio virtual network and then deploy it. The configuration file is a YAML file that can be downloaded from Flannel's repo. First, I find out what is the name of the Evio bridge using the IP command in node 1. In this demo, it is BRL10100F. I then added the YAML file to add an extra argument that specifies that Flannel should bind to the Evio interface, and then deploy it. Now I can see that the nodes are ready, and I can check pods that are running on the cluster. Note in particular that Flannel has deployed its own pods on each of the cluster nodes. Now I create deployment YAML files for 3 different pods, which I will later use to deploy pods on nodes 2, 3, and 4 from node 1. These pods are not running anything sophisticated. I'll just use them in this demo to ping each other and verify connectivity over Flannel. I'll create 3 YAML files and deploy them all from the manager node. Now I check the deployed pods again and see that the 3 pods are indeed running on nodes 2, 3, and 4. I can also verify that they obtain Flannel IP addresses, which are in the 10.244 range in this demo. Now I open a remote shell into the pod running in node 2. I copy and paste the Flannel virtual IP address of the pods in nodes 3 and 4 and verify that I can ping them from the pod in node 2. Note that packets are being encapsulated first at the Flannel layer and then at the Evio layer, where they are also encrypted. This concludes the demo, but please check our website for more details on how to go through it yourself. Thanks for listening and have a good day.